Okay, good evening, Energy Rogue Nation. Welcome back to another weather discussion. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It has been a while since we last spoke, and it seems like I say that all the time now for every single one of these introductions. But truly, it has been a little bit longer than last week's upload since the last time we spoke, and unfortunately, that was due to some audio issues that I was experiencing yesterday, so apologies for the delay on the, we'll call it North American weather discussion. So, you guys are in for a special treat tonight. Double feature. We're going to be talking first in this video about Europe and the trends over the next couple of weeks because we have seen some pretty seismic shifts in the weather model guidance that's going to have pretty significant implications for both Europe and the United States. But of course, this video will be focused on Europe. But then if you want the United States discussion, we'll also have that secondary video coming out later on tonight. And on top of that, for those of you who are subscribed to Energy Rogue, which you can check out, energyrogue.com for more information. We will be having a live forecast discussion at 7 p.m. that has been a hit for those who have attended. And for those of you that have not attended, that are currently Energy Rogue subscribers, highly recommend that you stop by for those. They happen every Thursday night on over in the Energy Rogue Discord, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And really, it's an open forum. We do sort of a discussion format, but also I field questions. Any questions you have as far as the next couple of weeks, hell, even the next couple of months, happy to go over those discussion points. And we do every week, Thursday nights over in Energy Rogue. So if you're not signed up with Energy Rogue, be sure to check it out, energyrogue.com. There are multiple different tiers that you can pick from and choose, so be sure to check it out for more information. All shameless plugs aside, let's head on into the European weather side of things. And by the way, I have been showing off this graphic, and this is where I want to turn our attention first. This is from coolweather.com/record. Now, I had never heard of this website until I saw it circulating on social media, and I have to say, there are a lot of really cool products on here, and primarily focused on sort of the historical. They also do global forecasts and some of the model guidance that are similar to other websites out there. But what's unique to this one is they have a ton of historical sort of archives that you can look at. And it's not just like the last 30 years we're talking about, but really the last week. And so I wanted to show this first because I think this tells a pretty significant story, especially for Europe. So look at the end of January, we had quite a bit of above normal temperatures across Eastern Europe as we've been forecasting for much of this winter. But notice over the last few days, those have disappeared quite a bit. We're not seeing a lot of those above normal temperatures taking shape anywhere between Eastern and Central Europe. A lot of that has started to disappear. Of course, the honorable mention would be sort of the Nordic countries. They're seeing some of these above normal temperatures, at least today. But the general trend, especially as we've started out February, has been a very dramatic decrease of those above normal temperatures and beginning to sort of fade away, possibly even transitioning to some of these below normal temperatures that we're expecting over the next couple of weeks. And so wanted to set the scene first because really the way I look at meteorology is weather forecasting, you are in a way telling a story. And it's so easy, as I always preach, to jump right into the weather models. I mean, a lot of times, especially in the nat gas energy space, that's immediately what you jump to. But I think it's really important to see where we've been so that way we can then look at where we're going. And this is such a dramatic change across Europe that I think it's worth noting as we kick off tonight's discussion. And it also does serve as a very good transition into this next product here, which is the GFS 500 millibar map. And for those of you that are new to the channel, I just want to give you a forewarning. This map may look very ugly, but fear not, we are talking specifically about the jet stream here. Anytime you see 500 millibars show up here on the map, we are specifically talking about the jet stream itself. And this might be somewhat hard to follow, but there's a feature here that I really want to turn your attention to, and you're going to see it here in a moment. But let's set the scene. What we are looking at specifically in regards to the jet stream is the temperature in the mid-levels, right? And so you can see demarcated on this chart, we have low pressures and high pressures, and I just drew a high pressure with an L, my apologies. Let's also redraw this in black here. We have a couple of high pressures beginning to form near Greenland, and especially just to the west in the northern provinces, far northern provinces of Canada. And actually, let me just go ahead and pump the brakes a second. we are not actually looking in real time. This would actually take us into later on in the month. Let's back this up all the way to where we're at today, which would be February the 6th. And so I kind of gave you a bit of a foreshadow on where we are going, but follow me here for a moment. So at the moment, we are currently looking at a lot of low pressure right near the northern pole, especially towards Greenland. And if we recall anything about the North Pole, we know that in the northern hemisphere, cold air corresponds with low pressure, and warmer air corresponds with higher pressure, or what we may sometimes refer to as a ridge. Now, this is a really critical feature that we're going to be honing in on tonight, especially for Europe, and you'll see also with the United States, in that these low pressures like to circulate around the North Pole, and they do so in a clockwise rotation or navigation around the North Pole. And what you're going to see is two features that really begin to show up on our weather models. And by the way, this feature is showing up both on our ensembles as well as the singular solutions. There is very high confidence in this scenario that we're going to be talking about. But the two features that are going to be critical to this pattern flip we see across Europe is actually taking place in the United States. The first one is what's called the PNA. And this stands for the Pacific North American Oscillation. And when we talk about this, we are really referring to whether or not we see ridging or troughing out in the northern Pacific and especially the Gulf of Alaska. Now, a bit of a giveaway here, we are expecting to see a positive PNA, which would correspond with high pressure, or as we refer to as ridging. So that's feature number one, taking shape across the Gulf of Alaska, really over these next couple of days. But then there's a secondary feature that's unique to this setup specifically, and that is the NAO. And when we talk about the NAO, we're referring to the North Atlantic, and I'll abbreviate ATL, oscillation. And so, similar to that of the PNA, the only difference is we're looking at the location of it. So we're trying to establish, are we going to be seeing an area of high pressure or low pressure, ridging or troughing? Well, according to our models, we are likely to see ridging take place in the northern Atlantic, and of course off the page, sort of distorted on this map, is Western and Eastern Europe. And so when you have both a really ample PNA, or a positive PNA, and a positive NAO at the same time, that can actually lead to cold air blocking. So think about it. If we have high pressure building in the Gulf of Alaska, but then we also have high pressure being built near the northern Atlantic, where's that cold air going to go? It's not going to have any place to go, right? Because if there's no troughing out in the northern Atlantic, it's not like it can just continue to sweep across and then replace any cold air to the south with warm air in the United States. No, instead, what you're going to see on this map is this cold air mass, these pinks and blues, pretty much staying in the same spot. And so let's go ahead and play this out. And just as a reference, I want to remind folks, we are currently looking at today, or as of this morning, Thursday, February the 6th. But keep an eye on that cold air. You're going to see that this cold air really hangs around across the northern United States over time, right? So keep an eye on it. I know it might be kind of hard to see, but if we look, we don't see any warm air bulging eastward. Actually, quite the contrary. Instead, we see these three lows sort of circulating in the same spot, almost to the point where by the time we get to next Wednesday, well, look what's happened here, folks. All of these low pressure systems that were near northern Greenland have now been replaced with high pressure. That ridging that we saw across both the North Atlantic and the Pacific, that has amplified and actually split off and sort of lodged itself within the North Pole. That is significant because that typically can lead to what we call stratospheric warming. It's the concept that our cold air is being replaced with warmer air, and that cold air near the poles, it has to go somewhere. It can't just, stay static. Because warm air is intruding, it's going to then want to move south. And so if we were to draw our jet stream overall, it's going to look something like this for the next couple of weeks. And so that feature, that sort of flip between your low pressure and high pressure, is going to keep this cold around for quite a while. So we're not talking about a one-off event like we were previously forecasting for. we're now forecasting for a pattern, right? This isn't just a one-off event. This is, in fact, a pattern, and that's going to be implicating both the United States and Europe. And so, as we will see, if we take this jet stream, over to Europe, right, this means continual low-pressure systems making its way into both Western and Eastern Europe. That could lead to some precipitation, possibly winter precipitation, in the form of snowfall or wintry mix across parts of Europe. So, again, keep an eye on that. But for the United States and Europe, we're talking about a pretty frequent winter pattern to really take us through the rest of February and possibly into the beginning of March. So, again, pretty significant jump here in our weather models. We've really just seen this change over the last few days. There have been meteorologists that were signaling it at the very beginning of February. I held off on that conservatively because I want to be careful in forecasting too far out. But the signals that have come together, especially in the medium to long term, are pretty consistent and concise. We're already seeing that pattern begin to take shape, as we saw to kick off tonight's conversation. And so that has given me enough confidence as a forecaster to say, you know what, this is going to be a pretty significant pattern that really locks in over these next few weeks, especially through the rest of February, possibly. So let's take this now over to Europe and really conceptualize this with some of the temperature anomalies. And I will say, this is actually the first time that I'm looking at this. We are looking at this in real time. And let's actually look at this from the EPS perspective. Excuse me. And so if we take this to Thursday, let's see what happens as we head towards Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Look at all this below normal temperatures you see as we head into next week. We see a lot of blue, right? And again, that is because of the features we're expecting. We're expecting a positive NAO, very ample. We're also expecting a positive PNA, which is going to be very indicative of cold in the United States, but probably even a little bit more closer to home. Both those features are important, but the NAO takes a lot more precedent with its proximity relative to Europe. Either way you look at it, this is going to be a very favorable setup for these below normal temperatures, and that's going to be taking shape across much of Europe. This includes Western Europe, by the way, with the exception of Spain and Portugal, likely to see some of these more above normal temperatures. But you can clearly tell a large swath of Europe as we head into the middle of next week is likely to be below normal. And that is really going to hang around for a bit. I will say the EPS does pick up on some warming taking place. That may be the case for Europe, but for the United States, not really expecting that for the northern U.S., so that will be in the other conversation in some of those other videos coming up here. But if we then look at the GEFS perspective, a little less bullish on that warming by the end of next week. But let's take this back to what would be the 6th. And as you can see, even a little bit more bearish on the cold. I do disagree with that. I think we're going to see some pretty ample cold across much of Europe, especially in the next week. And then it is also picking up on sort of a warming rebound by that second half of February. But notice how the GEFS is a little bit more on the bearish side. It's not very hawkish on the warm air, still keeping some of those temperatures, especially towards the Nordic countries, slightly above normal, even below normal at times. So if I were to put a bow on it, I would say really over these next couple of weeks, I'm very bearish on that warmth towards the very end of the month, but really the theme here for Europe is going to be well below normal temperatures across a large swath of Europe, once again including Western and Eastern Europe, especially as we head into next week and even beyond in the second half of February. As I mentioned, the models are picking up on some warming taking shape. I am a little bit skeptical on that because the pattern itself looks to be very bullish towards cold air for both Europe and the United States. So if you want more information on the United States side of it, especially for my nat gas traders, you're going to be wanting to look out for that video coming out later on tonight. Time to be determined. It's when it gets uploaded, but it will be out tonight, or by the time you're watching this, it's likely already uploaded. If you have not subscribed, be sure to do so. And be sure to like and comment down below if you have any questions. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, be sure to check out energyrogue.com for the latest information, as well as getting signed up for those forecast discussions. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in, and we will see you on the next weather video. Take care.